movie because it's about bees. But it was the #1 movie when it came out, so I had that feeling, which you had in the first Hangover.
Kind of not hard to see how that would happen, but having a village, like we were talking about, the village we had when we were growing up, the black people that looked after us.
Do you think if they only made one Hangover and didn't make the other two, it would be considered a comedy classic? Do you think that you destroyed...
Moms, your friends, everywhere you went, somebody knew you, everybody. So they are those kids too, but when they make that choice, there are a lot of people that they can turn to get advice from.
Ever notice how some celebrities refuse to bow down to the pressure? Samuel L. Jackson once made an interviewer squirm when he wouldn't let him dance around saying the N-word in a question about Tarantino films. We've collected the moments when A-listers like Denzel Washington, Matthew McConaughey, and Jerry Seinfeld totally shut down attempts to make them fall in line with woke expectations. Their responses weren't just brave, they were career-defining. Ever wonder who in Hollywood actually has the guts to say what they really think? Let's start with Samuel L. Jackson's legendary interview moment that had viewers cringing behind their screen. While promoting a Tarantino film, Jackson found himself sitting across from a reporter who just couldn't bring himself to say the N-word while discussing the movie's controversial dialogue. What made this exchange pure gold was Jackson's refusal to let the interviewer off the hook. As the reporter danced around the word, visibly uncomfortable, Jackson leaned forward with that signature intense stare. "Have you ever said it?" he asked point blank. The interviewer shifted in his seat. "No, sir," he admitted. Jackson didn't miss a beat. "Try it." The poor guy practically melted into his chair, but Jackson kept pushing, creating one of the most beautifully awkward power struggles ever captured on camera. Jackson wasn't having any of that fake moral posturing. If you want to discuss a film that uses controversial language, you better be ready to actually discuss it. The interviewer wanted to seem enlightened while simultaneously clutching his pearls.
That's a great, great story. It really has a funny ending. I can't wait to tell that at dinner later.
How do I approach this, and how do I navigate, this, that, and the other? And yeah, folk can call them Nepo kids if they want to.
Why would you have him come down and use him that way, in that cliche, exploitative way of just having him do his catchphrase from the show?
They work very hard to become who they are. And yeah, you're a Nepo kid, you deserve a shot. If your folks are good at it, well, let's see if you are too.
And Jackson called out the hypocrisy perfectly. Jerry Seinfeld showed similar backbone when a reporter tried to corner him about the lack of diversity on his show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. Instead of apologizing or promising to do better, Seinfeld shut it down with brutal honesty that left the interviewer speechless. "Funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested." No PR-friendly platitudes, just raw truth about his comedy philosophy. Seinfeld went on to explain that he cares about one thing only. Is it funny? The color, gender, or background of the comedian wasn't his concern. Either you make people laugh or you don't. In an industry where most celebrities rush to appease critics, Seinfeld's refusal to play along was a refreshing reminder that some stars still prioritize their craft over trying to score social points. Even younger celebrities have shown impressive resistance to media manipulation. Take ASAP Rocky, who refused to be baited into racial politics during an interview about police relations. When pressed to make inflammatory statements, Rocky flipped the narrative. Why are we exploiting the beef between urban community and police officers when black-on-black crime is ignored? The interviewer, clearly expecting a different answer, tried to redirect, but Rocky stood firm on addressing the bigger picture rather than following the expected script. Then there's Pharrell Williams, who found himself defending the lyrics to Blurred Lines against accusations of sexism. Instead of backing down, he pointed out the interviewer's double standard about sexuality. When she tried to frame the song as problematic, Pharrell calmly noted how she had just praised another sexually explicit song by a female artist minutes earlier. The double standard was exposed live on air, leaving the interviewer struggling to explain the inconsistency in her outrage. What makes these moments so satisfying isn't just celebrities standing their ground, it's watching them flip the script entirely. These interviewers showed up with traps carefully laid, expecting the stars to either apologize or say something controversial they could turn into clickbait. Instead, these celebrities recognized the game being played played and refused to follow the rules. Jackson wouldn't let fake moral outrage slide. Seinfeld wouldn't compromise his comedy standards. A$AP Rocky wouldn't be pigeonholed into predictable talking points. And Pharrell wouldn't accept selective moral standards. Each of them turned the tables on interviewers who were more interested in manufacturing controversy.
Well, definitely. John David Washington, we've been kind of grooming him for a while, and we've known him for a long time, and JD's one of those kids that when he said he wanted to act, and fortunately for them, they are. So hopefully that, that's a thing that buoys other people who want to come through that, whole kind of lineage. Even though he's got this, very famous father, we were like, well, okay, you got to go to acting school, you got to do this, you got to learn how to do that. You have to read these books, you have to do this thing, you have to do these things.
You don't get to go to the next scene that you know is coming, or you may have to jump to some totally different place in the story. So it's kind of the loss of that kind of continuity.
Then having genuine conversations. Turning the tables on interviewers is one thing, but some celebrities aren't just playing defense anymore. They're actively dismantling the entire concept of cancel culture. While deflection skills are impressive, these stars have taken it a step further by directly challenging the system that tries to police their every word. PewDiePie straight up mocked cancel culture with his hilarious cancel culture cards joke. Everyone gets one, and then you have to shut the up. This wasn't just a throwaway line. It perfectly captured the absurdity of a system where one misstep means permanent exile. He even brought up the James Charles situation as proof of how trivial these cancellations can get, arguing that people need to show some backbone when facing these social media mob. Dave Chappelle took an even more direct approach. When an interviewer kept steering the conversation toward outrage culture instead of his actual comedy, Chappelle didn't just deflect, he walked out. Before leaving, he voiced what many comedians feel. Now everything is so sensitive now. That simple statement spoke volumes about the impossible tightrope comedians walk in today's climate where jokes are treated like political manifestos. Tracy Morgan didn't bother with subtle resistance. He bluntly stated, "I'm not scared. The stage is where you should be able to say what you want to say." Morgan doubled down by explaining that just because someone doesn't like what he says, that doesn't give them the right to cancel him for speaking his mind. For Tracy, the comedy stage remains the last sanctuary for honest expression in an increasingly uptight world. The frustration isn't limited to comedians. Veteran actor Brian Cox took aim at the explosion of content warnings on classic material. "I don't know anyone who goes to Sound of Music who needs to be told there are references to Nazi Germany," he said, pointing out that these practices aren't driven by actual audience needs but by a vocal minority. Cox argued that these warnings actually diminish our cultural experiences by treating viewers like children incapable of handling context. Constantine Keishan went even deeper, offering a definition of woke culture that cut right to its core: the promotion and celebration of victimhood. His analysis exposed how this ideology creates a hierarchy of oppression where certain groups automatically gain moral superiority over others. Keeson warned that this system leads to societal division rather than healing, the opposite of its supposed intention. Douglas Murray challenged the shallow understanding behind representation demands. When faced with loaded questions about historical representation,
Took it to heart. So we were, all the people that are in his camp that want him to succeed, put him to a hard task. If you're like, it's like low energy or whatever, when I was sitting in that bedroom waiting on the curtain to go up or the lights to come up, and it's difficult enough being who he is, but we made it harder because we applied pressure, and we think that those things have paid off. I could just hear them, and you hear the audience, and you hear them laughing, you hear them talking. You know that they're anticipating being into a thing that they came to see that they.
Murray flipped the script by exposing the questioner's historical ignorance. He pointed out that history has ignored numerous groups, not just those currently in the spotlight, and that fixating on specific identities misses the complex reality of historical narratives. Perhaps Ricky Gervais delivered the most devastatingly simple takedown. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. Some people are offended by equality. In these few words, Gervais identified the fundamental flaw in offense self-defense-based morality, that feelings don't automatically translate to ethical correctness. He added that trying to please everyone ultimately results in pleasing no one, making a case for the freedom to express controversial ideas. What makes these responses so powerful is that they don't just defend specific instances of speech, they systematically dismantle the foundations of cancel culture itself. These celebrities aren't just dodging bullets, they're questioning why anyone should have the right to fire those bullets in the first place, by challenging the basic assumptions of woke ideology, that offense equals harm, that certain identities confer automatic moral authority, that entertainment needs to be sanitized. They're reframing the entire debate, and their approaches work precisely because they target the logical inconsistencies within cancel culture, rather than simply rejecting it outright. By exposing the contradictions, selective outrage, and historical ignorance behind many woke critiques, these celebrities reveal something their critics often miss. Context matters, intention matters, and the freedom to express uncomfortable ideas matters. But what about the true Hollywood heavyweights? They don't just dodge the traps, they refuse to even play the game. Denzel Washington cuts through the noise with his signature no-nonsense approach. I'm solution-based, not problem-stuck. Instead of getting caught up in activism labels, he focuses on being an advocate for actual change. That's what real influence looks like. Then there's Morgan Freeman, who completely dismissed the idea that race determines success. Why would race have anything to do with it? Stick you put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. No victim mentality, just personal responsibility.